Because Jesus absolutely knows what it's like to be a human, but I believe he knows what it's like to be a mother as well, because people were pulling on him all day long, even his clothes, right? They were pulling on his garments. They were, we don't have any food. We don't have any this. Where are we going? When are we going to get there?
Hey there, you're listening to the Girls Talking Life podcast, and I'm your host, Johanna. If you're like me, you love time with friends. I always leave feeling encouraged, inspired to try something different, or I've learned something new. So why not continue to grow even when we can't be with our girlfriends? We're not made to do life on our own. So in each episode of this show, I'll bring you a girl and her story to give you refreshing ideas to stir your soul. Let's walk this road together. Are you ready to talk life? Welcome to the show. I am so honored that you're listening in here. We are wrapping up our series on parenting and family culture today. I am joined by Amanda Bacon. Amanda lives in North Carolina with her husband Jeremy and their 8 children. Yes, I said 8. She's on staff at Proverbs 31 Ministries on Lysa TerKeurst's team and loves encouraging women with biblical truth and authenticity. Amanda is the co-host of All the Mom Things podcast, host of At Night, and is the co-author of Shiny Things, Mothering on Purpose in a World of Distractions. If you are an easily distracted mama, if you have trouble keeping your top priorities on top, today's show is for you. Amanda and I chat about some of the distractions in our lives and how a lot of times we use distractions as an escape when things are hard. And because our brains are so full, managing all the things for our families, we need things like timers and reminders to keep us on track. Since summer is upon us and mothering on purpose is Amanda's heart, we wrap up our talk by chatting about things we can do to have a successful summer with our most important people. Everything Amanda and I talk about can be found in the show notes for today's episode at girlstalkinglife.com. Here's our conversation. Hey, Amanda, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Johanna. Thanks for having me.
I met you a few years ago at the Hope Writers Conference, and you were on stage. That's where I first saw you. And then we got to have a conversation a little later on, and I loved talking with you.
Yeah, that was so fun meeting. I was figuring it was about a year and a half ago, something like that.
So. Yeah, when we were able to gather at conferences.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Since read your book, and I've listened to your podcast with Anne Renee Gumley, your co-host, and I just love what you ladies have to say.
Oh, well, thanks so much. I'm excited to talk to you today.
Your book is Shiny Things, Mothering on Purpose in a World of Distraction. And you actually are, I think you just celebrated not too long ago, your 2-year anniversary.
That's right.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. It's crazy. It's been living out there for so long.
I have talked to a bunch of authors, and I find that they usually write the book that they needed. Is that true for you?
Oh, that is 100% true. We always say that we didn't write a book on distraction because we had mastered it. It was just because we were so distracted ourselves and we needed to dig in, do some research, do some real heart checks and figure out where we really were and where we really needed to be, wanted to be, where the Lord was asking us to be. And that was how the book was birthed.
I think that for the most part, moms, women, we know what our priorities are. That isn't really the hard part, is to figure that out. But it is difficult sometimes consistently putting our top priorities first. So why don't we go to the best source, the best teacher? Can you tell me just what Jesus has to say about priorities?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the life of Jesus, it's filled with him showing us where our priorities can be, because he's our example, right? And like you were saying, to bounce back real fast about what you were saying about our priorities, we are so good at naming them. I think if I asked you what your top 5 priorities are in life right now, you could probably name them really quickly. Yeah. But like you were saying, we really struggle with keeping them in that order by the way we live and act and speak and breathe and everything. We really struggle with keeping them in that order. And I think from the life of Jesus, in the book Shiny Things, we wrote about it a little bit, but there were a couple examples of where he's showing us where our priorities should be. One of them is in serving others. And in John 13, he displays that by washing the disciples' feet. And then in John 15, he talks about abiding with the Father. And there's that whole beautiful section about abiding. And Luke, one of my favorite passages, because I often have to be reminded that as a mom, I should not feel guilty that I need to withdraw to be with the Lord, that I need to withdraw to gather myself. And Jesus shows us that in Luke 5:16, where he withdraws to pray away from his disciples and the crowds and everybody, because Jesus absolutely knows what it's like to be a human, but I believe he knows what it's like to be a mother as well, because people were pulling on him all day long, even his clothes, right?
Yeah.
They were pulling on his garments. They were, we don't have any food. We don't have any this. Where are we going? When are we going to get there? Like he knows, he knows all of that. And I love that he shows us in so many ways. Those like serving, abiding, and withdrawing to pray are just three simple examples of Jesus. Like he displays priorities and how to live our top priority with it at the top all through scripture. And we can find him everywhere there. And I just love that. I love that Jesus didn't feel guilty about it. He didn't question like, I should probably spend more time with these guys right now. And the Father can wait. I love that he was like, no, guys, I'm going over here. And he was just firm with it. And I'm going, and he didn't feel guilty about it. And that is a great reminder for me, because sometimes as someone, I'm try to be really careful about how my words land on my family, how my words land on other people. And I never want people to feel like I'm neglecting them, that I'm thoughtless with my words, or any of those other feelings we get when we need some space, Mm-hmm. And so I love that Jesus, being the epitome of kindness and love and grace and mercy and all those things we want to live, I love that he didn't second guess himself. He just did the thing. He was with the Father. He served people. He was gracious with his words, but he was firm too. And so I think we learn a lot from Jesus, and searching all through the Gospels, especially with those eyewitness accounts of his life, we see so much.
I love that exact same thing. And I love that you pulled out those examples. Those are really great ones. So we have our priorities, and then these distractions come into play. And they're going to be different for everybody, but what are the main culprits?
Oh man. Well, I think I don't want to generalize too big for women and moms everywhere, but these shiny things, these distractions, they've always existed. It always existed. The Garden of Eden, there were distractions, like they've always existed. And for me, I think my top draw, like I wish I was drawn to like house cleaning and stuff like that, but I'm just not. My top distractions are more when I want to run away out of, like, if a life circumstance or parenting is hard, then I run to a distraction of like my phone. And for me, I think my phone is the main one. I'm not like distracted by doing more work. I'm not distracted by like painting. Like some people are just, we all have like our hobbies or the things we're drawn to. And I think it's different for every person. For me personally, it would be to mindlessly escape and ignore my real life that needs my attention.
I think that's a big one for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
I watched The Social Dilemma with my family not too long ago, and they call your phone a digital pacifier. And that's such an ugly yet honest description of it.
That's so telling. I think that, in the times where if I, as a mom, if I'm struggling with something with a child, so we have 8 kids. I don't think we've mentioned that yet. We have 8 children, and the 5 youngest go to school. They've been home about half the year because of shutdowns in their school because of COVID-19, and some kids with special needs and, some behavioral issues and things like that. And when things get hard, I want to escape because, I don't want to, in my frustration or anger, say things that are hurtful and harmful. And so I will want to retreat. But when I retreat, which is a good thing, rather than praying or opening God's word, I will click open my phone. And that does not help me. A break is fine. Like in the book we talk about, and it's a question I ask myself all the time, is right now the right time? And phones are not bad. Social media is not bad. Whatever you're doing on your phone that is distracting is not usually, probably 90% of the time, is not actually bad, but is right now the right time. And that's the struggle. That's the question that I often will ask myself. And usually when I'm wanting to escape away from a situation with a family member, it's not the right time, because what I need to do is come in my room and retreat, pray, God, help me have words to speak to this child. Help me to be loving and gracious. Help me to have the mind of Christ when I'm speaking to them, because I have the mind of an annoyed mom a lot of the time. And I'm not perfect. I will never be perfect. I don't expect perfection from my kids or myself, but I don't want to cause more harm or more problem in the situation by reacting in a way that isn't actually helpful. And so my phone can just delay what I know I need to do, which is I still need to talk to them. I still need to go back out there in 2 minutes and, have a discussion. I still need to maybe give out some consequences if that's appropriate. But sometimes when we get into those distractions, it just delays what we already know we still need to do. And then we get all bent out of shape because maybe now we're running late, or they get into something else, or, so I think that I just, is right now the right time. And I think one of the ways that, because my brain is, so I work, have a job, have some ministries, I have 2 podcasts on the side, I write, and have a really big family. And I serve at my church, and there's a lot of stuff. So my brain has many, many tabs open at all times. And so one way I find to help me run my life and to keep myself on track so I'm not so distracted is by setting a bunch of timers. I have probably 5 timers that go off every single day in my phone to let me know, and they're reoccurring timers. Some I set for Monday through Friday. Some I set for every Monday. Some I set for every Wednesday. Some I have timers going off all day long, and that keeps me on track, because otherwise, because my brain is so busy and distractible, I will miss everything. I had 3 timers go off today just to prep for this interview with you, because when things are important to me, I want to make sure that my distracted brain isn't making me miss something important. And I'll set timers and limits with myself that, hey, my phone is going in the kitchen. It's going on the ledge over there. I don't get on it at night in bed because I have other things I want to and need to be doing. Like at bedtime, I like to read fiction. That's what I do every single night.
Me too.
And my phone, do you? I love it. It's a great way to end the day. And I find that if I'm on my phone in bed, when I could have done that at any point during the day, it's just too much. And then I lose the reading time that I treasure and am waiting for. And so I think that, sometimes we have to be disciplined with ourselves in order to do the things. There's a chapter in the book, I think it's chapter 9, called What I Want Most. And sometimes we have to really think about, and that does have to do with priorities. But if we keep engaging in these distractions, these things that we aren't really waiting to do, and desperate for them to fit into our lives, what we want most is waiting. And, if one of the things you want most is time to read, I hear from women all the time, I just don't have time to read. And I know in my life, so I know they might be struggling with distraction of some type, whatever kind that is, that's taken away from their reading time. Now, I know busy life. I know that life is busy, and maybe we're not distracted. Maybe we're just busy. But I do know, I think we all know in our hearts, there's a way that we are so distracted. And those things we really want, maybe that's a game night once a week with our family. It's waiting because maybe we're squandering the time. I'm not saying everyone is. I'm saying a lot of the times we squander the time we have, and we think we need something more than we actually do.
I love that you said that you have so many tabs open in your brain, because that's how I feel. That is my distraction, is all the thoughts in my head. I need to call the groomer to get my dog an appointment. I need to grab a birthday card for my friend whose birthday is in a few weeks. All the things.
Yeah.
Jobs and responsibilities, just keeping our family and our household running.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that you set timers. Tell me a little bit more, or maybe even give me an example. What do you need to be reminded?
I have to be reminded of, there's a lot of things in my in my life and in my job that I do repetitively, either every day or every week. So for instance, we lead a small group with our church. Our church calls them discipleship groups. They're called all different types of things, but we lead a small group, and every Monday I have a reminder, an alarm that goes off on my phone at 10:53. It just happens to be the time I picked, a.m. And it says text discipleship group. And we text them every week. I text them every week to remind them. We meet every other week to check in to, hey, our next meeting is blank. So every Monday I have an alarm that goes off. Every Monday I have another alarm that goes off at 12:30 that reminds me to send a meeting agenda out that I send out every Monday for my team at work. Every single morning of the week, I have an alarm goes off at 9 a.m. because I have to send something else out for work. It's to keep me on track. Otherwise, I'd be looking at all these papers and trying to organize myself in all these different ways. I have a paper planner, a digital planner. I have a digital calendar. I have a paper planner in the kitchen. And I keep them all integrated so that we can all stay on track. And another thing, like you were saying, this is another thing that really helps keep all those thoughts captured, is once a week I just do a brain dump in a certain notebook. Mm-hmm. And sometimes my head just feels overwhelmed, even when I'm sitting down with the Word of God to read. And I'm so I can't even focus on what I'm reading because I have to sign that form for school and it's due tomorrow. And I pick up that notebook and write all that stuff down so I can set it aside and look at it in a minute and know I won't forget it. But I usually do a weekly brain dump. I did one yesterday because it was just too much and I thought I was missing something, and I wasn't really missing anything major, but I got it all down. So that weekly brain dump and timers really saves me. And I don't know, I feel like a scatterbrain mess a lot of the times. And some of that I just can't help because of the nature of my life and the family God's given me. There's a lot of people who with a lot of needs and have to remember a lot of stuff. And I just have had to find ways to capture all of that so that I can live in the way I like to, which is with a calm demeanor, with purposeful words, with my priorities in order. And I don't do this perfectly at all, but it saves me when I take the time to make sure it's all running in that way. And it's taken lots of years to actually be humble enough to admit that I need all this help.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right about putting it down on paper or getting it into some digital place. Then you can release it from cycling in your brain.
Yes.
Yeah, that's so good. So important. Hey friends, I am interrupting my conversation really quickly to tell you about the Gathering Project. If you are craving connection, if you have been meaning to get your girlfriends together but you just need some motivation, or if you need fresh ideas to make your gatherings more meaningful, I want you to join me in June for the Gathering Project, a 5-day experience to plan, prep, and gather with your girlfriends. In those 5 days, you will have a gathering planned and ready to execute for summer. It might be a one-time get-together or a summer book study that meets regularly. That is all up to you. But my mission is to help you gather, have conversations, create meaningful connections, and build lasting friendships. Here's what a past participant had to say. Highly recommend signing up for the Gathering Project. It was so practical. Would especially recommend it for those who are hosting newbies or consider themselves introverts like me. Another participant said, in a small amount of time, I feel more confident and eager to host a gathering. Hospitality does not come naturally to me. Thank you for pulling these ideas and resources together and making it so easy to navigate. The next round of the Gathering Project begins on June 14th. Learn more and save your spot at girlstalkinglife.com/thegatheringproject. Now back to our conversation. Okay, well, we want to have our kids. They are a top priority, and we want to give them the attention that they need. But sometimes, because we do have other responsibilities, they are the distraction. What do we do then?
Yeah, I know, man. I think communication is the big one. That is the really big one. My kids the youngest is 8, almost turning 9. And so I don't have babies and preschoolers anymore. I did for about 15 years. Our claim to fame is about 15 years of diapers. So we survived that season. And now my kids are old enough that I can communicate with them like if they were here, my youngest ones happen to be at school right now, but if they were here, I would say, okay, mom is going to be in the middle of something for about the next 45 minutes to an hour. This is what you can do right now. And this is the help I need from you. And so communication is really big. A lot of our kids don't do well with surprises or no warning with things. And so that's one thing. But when we're like, oh, our kids are actually, distracting me. And I think I just have to get to the heart issue. And you know what it usually is for me is I've squandered the time that I had to do something in peace and quiet. Is I used it for something that I could have done anytime. And I didn't use the time that I had for the thing that I needed to not be distracted on. And that's really humbling. And it sounds really kind of hard on myself, but usually it's not that often that they're here and I really need focused time other than in the summer that's coming up. And I think communication is just really key. Speaking of summer, one of the things that we do that really helps. My kids even asked me the other day, Mom, are we going to do the thing where you put the little schedule out in the living room where we can look at it in the summer? Because I still have a job in the summer. I work part-time and so through the year. So in the summer, it's not super intense, but I do have things I need to be doing. And one of the things that helps them understand what's going on, and so I don't feel pulled and guilty, that I'm working and not with them, is, we write out what the schedule is for the day. I just stick it out in the living room. They know where to look. They know where to look for it. Oh, hey, from this time, mom's working. Here's what we can do. There's all these choices of things we can do. And then at this time, we're going to go to the library, or we try to just plan one simple outing a week, not a huge deal. There's outings throughout the week, but one we can all count on and get excited about. And that has really helped. But I agree. It is one of the worst feelings when we feel like one of our very top priorities feels like a distraction. And we can, it's kind of one of those things that women and moms don't really talk about a whole lot because of the way it makes us feel. We feel guilty saying that. We feel guilty thinking that. We feel like something's wrong with us if we actually had those thoughts that my kids are so distracting. But we all know, right? I mean, it's common knowledge. We try to read a book when any child or human is in the room, they're going to talk to us. And, unless we have like a little, closed encased little thing around a chair with an on air sign or a please don't talk to me sign, it's just not going to happen. Yeah. And so I've really had to settle in my heart that life is like this right now. And it won't always be like this. And about 10 years ago, we had 5 kids that were newborn and under. And we added 3 more kids really rapidly through adoption and another birth. But I remember 10 years ago vividly going, I am never going to stop holding babies and caring for little people, even though I love it. I love it so much. But it just felt like it would be never ending. And now here we are we went from 5 kids to 8 kids. And now they're all more self-sufficient. Age is almost 9 to 20. And I'm like, oh, how did that happen? When back then I was so desperate for something different. And 10 years is a really long time. We all can admit that. It's a really long time. But when I think back about, all that's happened in those 10 years, that the growth is gradual for them, and that it was gradual in my heart turn from looking at it all as, oh, this is so grueling and I want to just speed past it. Parts of it I did, parts of it I still do. But the sooner I can turn my heart to, man, this isn't going to last forever. And what can I do about it today? Because I can get overwhelmed with what am I going to do about it this summer, the whole summer. But, God's grace is sufficient for me, and his power, is displayed through my weakness. And I'm like, well, God, I got a lot of weakness to work with because you got me every day, And so I think just when we look too far ahead, we get so afraid and scared and sad and frustrated. But if God can give us enough for today. And that's really where I have to park every single day. New things come in. I've got adult sons. I've got 4 teenagers and an adult son, and then some younger ones too. And it's just, it can be a real zoo in my heart and in my mind and the way I act, because it is a real zoo, but I can be a zoo as well. I can be a real circus act if I don't learn to keep those priorities in order. And I think us women would do well to, man, keep that top priority, which is, I think Christian women would all say my top priority is my relationship with God and honoring and serving and knowing him. And I think, let's work on that first. I think that the other things will line up. If we can keep that first and most, the other things, they'll line up, and our attitude will be better. Our thoughts will be better. The way we talk to people will be more godly because we have more of him in us.
Yeah. Less likely to jump to the negative reaction.
That's hard. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I like what you said about, sometimes it's our fault. We have squandered our time. I don't remember where I got this piece of advice, but do the things that need the most focus when your kids are at school, when they're napping, and do things like folding the laundry when they're around, when you can have a conversation with them and be doing a mindless chore. That has been so helpful.
That's right.
When I'm prioritizing my days.
Yeah, there's a book out there called Eat That Frog, I think. I can't remember the subtitle, but it's like basically the concept is, like you were saying, do the hardest thing first. Yeah. Eat that frog, which is sounds like the grossest, weirdest thing, but do the thing that takes the most focus and thought first, and then, the rest will fall into place. Or kind of that analogy, that one we've heard probably for years is like, you have a vase or a jar, and what if you have all these rocks to fit in? Well, you put the very largest rock in first, and then all the pebbles and smaller things will fit around it. It's kind of that same concept.
So good. I asked some mamas on Instagram what their biggest parenting struggle was at this moment. And one mom said that her son, he's 4.5, he will whine and fuss when she and her husband are together and trying to have a conversation. Mm-hmm. And she said a lot of times it turns into a full-on tantrum. And she asked what to do about that. So I thought, well, that falls right in line with when your kids are the distraction.
Yeah. And that is a part of 100% a part of parenting, is trying to figure that stuff out, because the relationship between parents is really important. And some of the times, I think it's a couple things. Some of the times we're tempted to make the child the most important thing, but some of the times the child really does need something, and they need our attention and our love. And I think that also kind of relates to that conversation of, can we schedule this conversation in a time that is more conducive? Maybe when the kiddo goes to bed, or maybe put them in front of a show or in a high chair with a snack when they're sitting next to us. And when my little people, my boys were really young, they're 18 and 20 now, and I used to give them haircuts and kind of buzz their hair, cut their hair when they were just toddlers and little. We always had a tradition, and it was, I would give them a little dum-dum sucker, those tiny little suckers, and put them in front of a baby Einstein. And we did neither of those things super often. And so whenever we did the haircut, that was the tradition. And I think, for that mama, you could start to employ something similar, that whenever mom and dad need to sit down and talk, this is what you get to do if they're not sleeping, or go on a walk with the kiddo in a stroller and talk. Sometimes new scenery helps. Those are just some things that pop into my head first because of all the years of juggling little people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes making it special, if you want to have some time to talk, make it a special thing where it's always a stroller walk, or, the high chair and a snack or something like that, where it's special and maybe they can actually look forward to it and not freak out, because it is hard. It's hard juggling little people in adult conversation. That's a tricky business where the solutions don't work every time either. So you have to get creative.
Yeah. I like that though, making it something special for the little one too.
Mm-hmm.
Amanda, recently you and Anne Renee on your podcast talked about behavior and obedience. And you talked about having a control and a fear where you want your present day to be easier and more fun.
Yeah.
You also have a fear of the future for your kiddos. Like, are they going to be okay? And you can see an action now and how that would translate to a bigger consequence later. And I was tearing up when you said this, because that is exactly how I feel a lot of the time.
Yeah, I think too, like that's an everyday reality for me too. And a thought I literally have every day. And I wrote something down this morning when I was reading and scripture, and this little notebook I have has you write down a prayer of surrender every day before you read. And it's always something to do with fear or my ideas about the way something should go, or that something should be fixed now. Hurry, what are we going to do? And, I'm having to daily lay that down and surrender that fear of the future for all of my kids, but for certain kiddos who have some special needs that greatly affect decision making and impulsivity, and things where the brain is directly affected. And it's scary to have some behaviors now that, if translated to an adult, would end them in jail, or, it's scary for a parent. And what I have to keep remembering as I speak to them and as I pray for them is that only the Spirit can transform a heart. And that's His work. And it's not my work. As we know, as Christians, it's our job to do that seed planting, plant those seeds of God's word and God's love. And maybe somebody else will come along and water, and God does the growing and all of that. But we forget that when we're desperate for our lives to be easier as parents and as people, and we're just desperate for that. So we think it has to change now. And then sometimes we get angry and we get frustrated, and that comes out in our speech and our actions. And it's mostly because of fear and frustration. That's what I find for myself anyways. And yeah, the Spirit of God transforms. And it's just a reminder for me to keep close to Him, keep talking to Him about my kids, and keep talking to my kids about Him. I think it goes both ways. We can't just have one without the other. And sometimes I can be so focused on myself and how I feel about it that I forget to stop, open the Word of God with my kids and show them. And I'm like, duh, Amanda, that's it. But I don't always think of it.
I am guilty a lot of the time of not pointing them to God's word. And you even say later in this episode, it's not so much like these are the rules that mom and dad lay out and you need to follow them because you just do, that there's so much more to it, and that we need to lead them to the why behind it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you mentioned summer a little bit already. What are some ways that we can mother on purpose this summer?
That is a really great question.
It's a big question. I know.
Yeah, it is. And I made a little mini list, and I think it's different for all of us. But I think one of the ways that for moms, especially, summer can feel hard is because we're rigid and we want things to go, like I had mentioned before, laying out a little schedule. It doesn't always go that way, and it's okay. It's just great to have a little guide for starters. It doesn't always go that way. Things come up. Kids just won't do it sometimes. They want to do something else, and then that causes a scuffle, But I think being flexible and not so rigid is one of the very first things that I need to remember as a mom in summer. As they don't have necessarily in their mind things they want done and want to do like I do. And I have to remember what it was like to feel like a kid in summer when I was their age. Flexible is one. Another is clear, which is, laying out what the expectations are for the day, what you can do. For instance, this might sound rigid, but it's life-saving for me, is the kiddos don't come and see me or any parent. If Jeremy and I are both home, we don't see their faces till 8:30. So we know that in the morning, if I'm sitting in the living room by myself for some time, some peace, I'm not going to see any cute faces till 8:30 a.m. And that's when they come for breakfast. And we've been doing that for so many years, probably 16 years since my oldest was about 4, that it's just ingrained. And everybody knows that's what we do. And we do it on Saturdays too, year round. It's just the thing. That's the only day everybody gets to sleep in. And so it's 8:30.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's one of the things that is just a routine. And I think that sometimes we even feel guilty about that, oh, but they wake up at 6 and they, and some families are different. This is just the way it works for our family, is to have a clear expectation of this is it. And it's okay to have some clear expectations. The other thing, a lot of it's surrounding eating in our family because everybody's asking about food all the time. So lunch is at 12:30 in the summer. It's stayed the same for many, many years. Breakfast at 8:30, at 12:30, go ahead and make your own lunch. That's the other thing we do now that everybody's big enough and they love it. It's not a you have to make your own lunch. It's you get to. You get to choose. Everybody can make a different lunch as long as you clean up after yourself. And it works great because we always have leftovers because we make a lot of food for dinners. And there's always something fun to make or easy to make. Or they make cookies or, they kind of get creative. And that's been really fun, but clear about just some of the structure of your day being clear and the same. The activities we do between meals is very different. But if they know breakfast 8:30, lunch 12:30, that doesn't change, it helps all of us. Because then I don't have 6 to 8 people saying, can I make lunch? Can I have lunch? Can I have breakfast? They just know. Just at 12:30, go for it. And even if you want to wait till 1, go for it. So it just helps to be flexible and clear in some of those ways. Another way, this one has to do with me, it's being disciplined. The time that I have to do things, if they're busy, if I say, okay, you guys can watch a movie for an hour and a half, I'm working on a project, then I work on the project. I don't do something else.
Yeah.
That like fold laundry or scroll on my phone or talk on the phone to a friend. That's enticing. Friends call and I'm like, oh, sorry, can't talk right now. I'm working on a project. Keeping those boundaries really clear and not feeling guilty because that's the time I have. So myself being disciplined. And then I think the last one is similar to the first, but it's loosen up, have some fun. Don't be so, I have to stay indoors all day because this is what I do all year when you're at school. Loosen up, have some fun, go new places, raid the library, get way more books than you planned. Loosen up, have some fun with the things that really don't matter, but matter a ton to your kids.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say. And brainstorm. We also brainstorm at the beginning of every summer. What are some things y'all want to do this summer? Not making any promises, just what do you want to do? The other night at dinner, we talked about going to a zoo that's about 2 hours away that we have an annual pass to because it's a really great zoo. But we only went once last year and it expires in July. So everybody's so excited. Let's go to the zoo and plan a Saturday or a Friday to go to the zoo. And we can kind of get excited and then look at the calendar and plan what week we're going to do that. So loosen up and have some fun after you get your stuff done.
I like that so much. We had a packet of coupons come in the mail and I was just pulling them out this week. Like, oh, mini golf.
Fun.
Another little water park that's nearby. Just things that I probably wouldn't normally do, but it's summer. And I want to loosen up and I want to make sure that we get that intentional fun time.
Yeah, that's fun.
Amanda, I ask all my guests for their favorite 5. What are 5 things that you're reading or watching or doing right now that are your favorites?
Okay, let's start with food. The first 2 are food related. I love fresh salsa, like not the kind that's like cooked and then put in a jar and sold on the shelf. I like fresh salsa I can either make, which I only do like once a year, or buy just that fresh, yummy, chunky salsa with blue corn chips. So that's number 1.
If you have one that you're buying, do you have a specific brand?
You know what? Honestly, I've liked everyone I've tried. Locally, we have a grocery store called Aldi, and we do most of our grocery store shopping there because we live in North Carolina. And I love their fresh salsa. Yesterday, I bought one from a totally separate grocery store. Trader Joe's has great ones. Mm-hmm. I've never found a fresh salsa I don't love. Okay. That's just in that refrigerated section of the grocery store. I think they're all yummy. And I like making it too. I just hardly ever have every single ingredient. But I love salsa. And another thing that I love that I'm kind of forced to love, I've had to go dairy free for almost the last year. And I think I'll have to continue forever because my stomach, I didn't realize my stomach didn't like dairy till this last year. And I guess I've been suffering all along. But coffee is a big deal to me. And I usually love half and half, just straight half and half, but I just can't do that right now. And so Nut Pods Creamer it's an almond milk and coconut milk mixture. It's unsweetened. I also have to be off sugar. There's all these things. Johanna, no gluten, no sugar, no dairy is the life of Amanda in the last year. So lots of fresh stuff, lots of meat and veggies.
I'm glad you're finding good alternatives.
Yeah, lots of good alternatives. Feel much better. But Nut Pods creamer is yummy. You can either buy them in the little tiny cute little boxes, like a little almond milk box. They make cute little boxes. I get those off Amazon, but at the grocery store, they carry it in like a bigger creamer container. And there's like hazelnut, vanilla, all the yummy stuff. And then the other things, my last three are things to watch, listen to, and read. So I mentioned reading fiction earlier, and that's become a real love of mine. And this year, I've read a lot of great fiction, but one of them I loved. It was called The Dearly Beloved, and I would highly recommend that one. And then to listen to, I love listening to podcasts, and there's been one that's come into my life in the last year, and it is not for young ears, but it is for Christian men and women, and it's called Bare Marriage, and it is really good. I would highly recommend you check that out because it's kind of debunking and fixing some of the messages we've gotten about intimacy and marriage in the evangelical world in books and concepts and things from the purity movement and things like that. So it is good. It's called Bare Marriage Podcast. And lastly is my great love for British television. And recently, I love British television more than anything. Recently, I just finished The Durrells of Corfu, or The Durrells in Corfu, which is I think there's 4 seasons, but it's an amazing show. Just finished that. And I will forever love Downton Abbey. That's always my favorite. And any Jane Austen adaptation, miniseries, movie, you name it, British TV, all the way. Those are mine.
Oh, I love those. Thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
It has been so fun to talk with you. I love just picking your brain, all the knowledge and wisdom that you have from raising such a big family. I am in awe of that. It's just been really great to hear, you are doing all these good things, but you're distracted just like I am. And we really want to put our attention and our focus on God, who can get all our priorities straight and help us in all those ways.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a delight to talk with you today.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you so much for listening. No matter what your top distractions are, I hope our conversation has given you some encouragement and some practical tools to live and mother more purposefully. I loved Amanda's reminder that only the Spirit can transform hearts. It's not my work. It's not your work. We just need to be planting the seeds. Be sure to check out Amanda's and Anne Renee's book, Shiny Things. It is such a great read if you're looking to dive deeper into this topic. And it would be a fantastic book club book if you're thinking about hosting one this summer. Grab your mom friends and dig in. Friends, don't let the conversation stop when the show is over. Share your own stories and start your own conversations with the girls in your life. I will see you back here in 2 weeks. Thanks for tuning in.